Greetings, everyone. This is, yes, the favorite time of the month because it's either the first or third, and it just so happens to be the third Tuesday of the month. Being Brown at Work Live, you know I absolutely love it. If you've been hanging with me for a while, you know this is my favorite time of the month. If you're just meeting me, I'm Linda Talaferro from the T, the Extra Effort. And the reason why my favorite time is because I have phenomenal people like this young woman who is with me again tonight. She was here 2 Tuesdays ago. If you missed part one, you want to go catch it on the replay. It's out there everywhere: YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, podcasts, all the podcast channels, wherever you're subscribed. Hopefully, you subscribe to my YouTube channel. Go catch part one because it was everything. And the reason why I said it was everything because it was a conversation I wanted to have, but didn't realize that I would get it at the depth that I did. I mean, Chenae just shared her heart. So you want to go catch part one, excuse me. So let me reintroduce to some of you and introduce to those of you just hanging with us for the first time, Chenae Eckard. Chenae is originally from Camden, New Jersey. She earned a bachelor's degree from St. Augustine's University, a Juris Doctorate degree from North Carolina Central University School of Law. After graduation, Chenae decided to pivot into human resources to become a recruiter. She landed her first recruiting role in higher education as a temp recruiter. While in higher education, she was able to successfully convert into a full-time recruiter in healthcare. During her time in healthcare, Chenae recruited entry, mid-career, and senior level roles. She later pivoted into technical recruiting, where she specializes in software engineers, program product managers, and cybersecurity professionals. Along her journey, specifically in healthcare, she picked up tips and tricks that will help job seekers make their search easier. Chenae is committed to helping the community learn networking techniques to catch the eye of the recruiters and hiring managers with her job seekers' resources, events, and individual sessions. Chenae has grossed over 133,000 followers across all social media platforms, is respected within her community, and has helped 200 plus people get interviews and job offers when they couldn't, ranging from 3K to 141K salary increases. She is a motivational speaker at her core, a gift she uses through spoken word poetry. She has published 3 books of poetry, continues to write, as her goal is to help everyone heal as best as they can. Her passion for advocacy and civil rights helps her cultivate relationships with diverse communities. She empowers the minority community to go after what they think they can't have and uses herself as an example of having natural hair, being authentically yourself, and standing in the gap for those who are voiceless. Outside of recruiting, Chenae Eckard is a motivational speaker, spoken word artist, and author of 3 books of poetry. Chenae currently resides in Durham, North Carolina, with her husband, Terrence Eckard, and 2 dogs, Bane and Kodak. She believes her faith and spiritual maturity helps her speak life into her community. She lives by 2 scriptures: Philippians 4:6-7, and Romans 8:31. Chenae,
That's
welcome back
right.
to Being Broad at Work.
That's right. They,
Ah,
they they get me through. Them scriptures get me through, Lord.
Curl, don't it?
Right.
Yes. Those are some of my faves as well. They are no joke. Some of my faves as well. On part one, everyone, I read the scriptures. This time I'm not, because you want to go read them yourselves. Because I guarantee you, when you read them, they are going to resonate with you. Maybe your faves that you follow in your life as well. Chenae, in our first session, what I loved about our conversation was your willingness to really peel back the onion and share from your heart your experiences in your career that unfortunately were not the positive ones. They weren't the best.
Yeah.
And I appreciated you for that, because as one of the persons that, or many of the people that commented on the post and shared with us, many of us don't talk about it. We're not comfortable enough sharing in that vulnerable space
Yeah.
what really took us out in a workplace that was toxic. Can you share a little bit about that, what you shared with us in part one, and And you finished it with giving people permission to feel. So can you share a little bit about what you shared with us in part one of your
Yeah.
experience and how you got to the point of feeling?
Yeah, briefly. So, the idea of behind what I experienced at work was I think I came to the realization and acceptance that for some reason, when Black women stand up for themselves, when we speak up for what we believe in, we are seen as a threat for some reason.
Mm,
And I had to learn the hard way that it's almost as if the experience of the toxic work environment or how people, it's not because it's not just Black women. I am mature enough to know that it's not just Black women. We just get the brunt,
sure.
right? We get
There
most
we
of it.
go.
And
Yes,
so
yes.
it's understood that for some reason though, for Black women, it feels like a rite of passage because it almost
Mm,
feels like we're all going to experience this thing called a toxic work environment or someone feeling like we are too confident, too strong, and we are hard to deal with simply because we decide to stand up for ourselves. And I had already accepted. I have a tone. I'm from New Jersey. I'm from Camden, New Jersey. If those of us who are from up top, we got tones, right? We got a tone. So I already have a tone
yeah,
already,
yeah.
and I carry proudly that I'm from a Black neighborhood. I went to two Black schools. I'm a part of a Black sorority. I am a Black woman with natural hair, which makes me Black, right? And so
Mhm.
it almost felt like I guess the experience almost felt like, who are you to question anything that we
Mm,
know about? And I think what I
yes.
learned was that because I kept asking, like, why am I going through this? Like, I kept saying, what is it about me that's causing this to happen? Because I then started to say, there must be something I am clothing myself
Something
with.
wrong. Yeah, yeah,
For
yeah, yeah,
some
yeah.
reason that it's something wrong with me. And one of
Right,
my
right.
mentors put this eloquently, Natalie, shout out to Nat, because she put this eloquently.
Natalie.
She said, Chenae, you're not afraid of anybody. I said, what do you mean? She said her dad has since passed away, but when he was living, her dad used to be like Jesus, where he was not a respecter of persons. I am not a respecter of persons. But I don't
Mm.
talk to the director a certain way because he's a director, or the VP because
Mhm,
she's a VP. I talk to people like they're people.
mhm, mhm,
So I've
mhm.
said in conversations with leadership in general that I don't speak to titles, I speak to people.
People, yeah.
And I used to get, at a certain point, it was praise for my courage. And then for some reason, that turned into, oh, you doing too much. You have too much influence now. And so what I shared at the end of the last session was, I want to give permission. I want to give people permission to feel, because I told my story so many different times to so many different Black women and
Mhm.
Black men that I started to realize and hear that all of our stories were very similar.
Similar.
And
Yeah.
so it made me feel like, okay, I'm not crazy because I'm not the only one in the world that's going through this, right? So I
Right.
started to accept, Chenae, you have a right to feel how you feel. Another one of my hiring managers, we have now since become really good friends. She said to me one time, she said, the reason why you're having an issue is because corporate America does not like capitalism. I'm sorry, corporate America likes capitalism. They are not fans of individuality.
Mm. Mm.
And I was like, and so when it hit me like a ton of bricks, but it made total sense.
Right.
And she said the interesting thing about your experience is when anytime you walk into a company or a building or anything like that, and your actions show that you don't need them, you become a threat. And I understood where this person was coming from, but I also was still very confused because I was like,
Yes, yes.
but I'm actually working though. Like I'm not trying to
Right.
do anything against anything. I'm
Yeah, you're producing.
trying to do my
Yeah.
job,
Mhm.
but I'm
Right.
doing it in a creative way that for some reason I have too much confidence, I have too much courage, I have too much of a voice, and I need to fit into a mold because I am not supposed to stand out this way. I am not
Yes.
supposed to challenge this way. So
This
I
way.
wanted to
Yes.
give people to the permission to feel because I think I learned the hard way and through my story is that people are afraid to share their story because they're afraid that if they share their story, they're not going to get another job.
Yeah.
If they share their story is always going to follow them, which means that other people are not going to want to hire them. And I started telling my hiring managers now, I started actually sharing, not necessarily sharing my story, but sharing some job seeker angst about being in front of hiring leaders and being truthful about how they feel. Because I started to say, I don't think y'all fully understand that y'all are more prone to believe other managers than the person who was actually affected.
Affected. Yes, 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 yes. And that's so true. And Chenae, you said something a few minutes ago that initially you were being praised. Initially, you were given positive feedback. You
Mm-hmm.
went from pet to threat.
Yep.
That happens to us often.
Yep.
Often, because all you did was stand in your truth, your power, your worthiness. And like you said, talking to another individual, human to human. We get
Mm-hmm.
hang. I mean, there's this thing about where our boxes on the org chart and titles that are just on business cards. We don't even pass out business cards anymore. But people get hung up with the
Yeah.
fact, oh, I'm a VP.
Yeah.
Well, that could be true, but I'm just as much of a person, a woman, a wife, an individual, and an adult, all of that as you are.
Yeah.
It's just that that my box on the org chart's at a different level. Does that mean I have to then be either disrespected or minimized and dismissed
Yep.
or not vocal? No. So, but that's the threat. And you, when you showed up in your full self, they wasn't so comfortable. They didn't like that. Not comfortable. And they never do. And I can imagine, yeah, do you have a tone? Sure. I know I have one. I'm from Pennsylvania. I can be very direct, very matter of fact. I've been told that many times, and I get it. But what I'm saying, and I know how I'm saying it's important, is it any different than my colleague who happens to be male of a different persuasion?
Mm-hmm.
No different.
All I'm doing is giving you what you gave me. Why are you threatened? So I have this thing when I started my career. When I started my career, I had a one of the VPs of HR was a Black woman, one of my sorors, and she said so. A meeting with her in her office, and she said something to me. She said something to the effect of, "I'm from the old school, which means that there are times when you just have to take it." I said, "Oh no, absolutely not." I immediately was like, "Oh, absolutely not. Oh, absolutely not." I said, "Here's the thing, different generation, millennial. Nope, not doing that." And so she said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Here's the thing. Here is my saying. One of my sayings throughout all of Chenae's sayings that I have. If you give me you and I give you you in return, I dare you to be offended." And she stopped and she was like, "Can you say that again?" I said, "Sure." I said, "If you give me you and I give you you in return, how dare you feel some type of way just because all I did was give you the same energy you just gave me?" I'm supposed to submit just because you got throned by this company that has given you a title when we all stand under the same heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
was like,
Yeah. And I'm old. Given my age, I can be in that old school mentality too, but I am not. One, I don't give it, and therefore I don't expect to get it. You see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
No, and to tell somebody that you just deal with it, I'm like,
What was
I'm
hard
like,
is she was Black.
I'm like,
That was confusing.
yeah. Well, look, we can do it to each other in such a way, and so oftentimes that's a whole nother conversation that we could have about how we mistreat each other.
That's right.
That's a whole nother conversation. That's got to be a topic in one of my
That has to
podcasts for
be. It
sure,
has to
because
be.
I swear, all, as we say, all skin folk and kin folk
That's right.
by far, right? So I know you were blown away when it came from her, absolutely, because I'm like, wait a minute, we kind of look the same here. I'm confused. So, Chenae, if we could now pivot in this conversation, and I would love if you could just reflect on your experiences and how did you get on the other side? I know, first of all, I don't want to speak for you, but I know for a fact there's not by accident that those pieces of scripture, or that's not by accident why they are your scriptures. So I get it, right? But
Mhm.
if you could, with the audience, because as I said in the opening, this is something that I know, unfortunately, there's numerous people still dealing with, still living it, unfortunately, today. We have in the past for doing it today, and I would imagine we probably will be doing it a while before these systemic situations change. But I would love if you could give some light to individuals to let them know you can get on the other side if you share how you did it.
Yeah. So I would be lying to you if I told you that I just got to the other side.
Oh, for sure.
One day I just woke up and decided I'm gonna be on the other side. I would be completely telling a lie.
For
I
sure.
I had to go through mental anguish. I had to go through suicidal thoughts. I
Mm.
had to go through um I had to go through a lot of different things. And what I mean by I want to go back to suicidal thoughts because we are trained in by society to think that we are weak or stupid or dumb because we've allowed for some reason a job to make us feel a certain kind of way.
Yes.
And I tell people all the time, you don't allow a job to make you feel a certain kind of way. It just kind of happens. Because by nature of you loving what you do, it miraculously happens and you don't even realize until it's too late. So
Mm.
one of the things that I said out loud to a leader was I said, I understand why people commit suicide over their jobs.
Yeah.
Then I quoted, not quoted, I mentioned the young lady from Lincoln University, the
I
black
was
woman her
just
job, killed herself.
Yes, I was just going to mention Ms. Professor Bailey, who
Mhm,
killed herself, Lincoln University in 2024 because
mhm.
of workplace bullying.
And
Yes.
I picked that up with people called her weak and
Yeah.
crazy and all the things. But until you understand how painful it can be to feel harassed, feel bullied, and have your mind tormented, until you wake up, like I said before, on a Saturday morning at 3 o'clock in the morning and call crisis, while your
Hmm.
husband is laying in the bed sleeping, he don't even know that you got up and called crisis.
Yeah.
Don't
Wow.
I will never allow
Wow.
anyone I will not allow anyone to judge other people's experiences about their workplace trauma. But I also have an aunt who experienced workplace trauma as well.
Okay.
What I did was I sat with her, I sat with my mom, I sat with my husband, I sat with some friends who for some reason all of us had this experience of some type of workplace trauma, but we
Hmm.
all were resilient in it. And so
Yeah.
I kept
Yeah.
saying, when I said I understand why people commit suicide over their jobs, I said something is wrong. I immediately was like, something's wrong because nobody should feel like that at work.
Right. Right. Right.
Not like
Right.
this isn't even in life, right? This is at work.
Right.
I
Exactly.
was like,
Exactly.
I was
Exactly.
like, I said, okay, something is wrong. And so what I did was I took some time, I separated myself, and I was in therapy. And all I
Okay.
did was I was talking about my experiences at work, and I was constantly talking about it. And I remember my therapist gave me the affirmation that I wasn't crazy. And then something
Mm.
happened at work. There was something that kind of kept me holding on, and that was I was in a like a virtual event, and somebody said that somebody talked about their experience and how it was toxic and all of that. And she asked herself if her grandmother would be proud of her. That pillow behind me, that pillow,
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah,
this,
yeah. I see it. I can see it.
this pillow, I'm at my aunt's house. I'm in her bedroom. This pillow
Uh-huh.
is my grandmother. So this is Betty. My grandmother passed away in November 17th of 2013. So I asked myself, every time I got upset, I would ask myself one question: is Terrence, Patrice, Portia, Betty, and Eric, those four important people, are they proud of me? Would they be proud of me for being the woman that they raised to stand up for herself? If the answer is yes, which it was, forget everybody else.
Everybody else. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
That was the start of me understanding how to get to the other side. But I kept my grandmother's face in my head because so her and I look more like my grandma than I do my mom. And so I kept her face in my head, and I kept thinking to myself, if I could call my grandma and ask her if she was proud of me, I know she would say yes. And so then I learned that one of my uncles, so my grandmother's youngest brother, was a Black Panther. And I didn't learn that until a year ago. And so I said, okay, this is in me. Standing up for myself is in me. So then I kept doing the God won't put more on you than you can bear. Then I kept Then I kept hearing all of the old scriptures that I knew that I was really living by in my head. Yes. And I kept thinking, the only reason why I'm holding on is because the person coming after me may not have the strength to. So if I stand up for myself, and if I have the strength to stand up for myself, I may save the next person's life.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
That was my start of the other side. Then after that, I started to genuinely, fully walk in. So I have the gift of hearing God's voice. So most people want to hear God's voice. I can actually hear God's voice. And so some of the things that God said to me was, all of this is going to make sense. And I couldn't understand, like I'm me and him boxing, because I'm at this point.
And there's no way this can make sense.
No way this can make sense.
There is no way.
And so I got to this place where I said, okay, I don't understand why right now, but I know at some point I kept seeing myself. For some reason, I was I'm also a dreamer, and I can see things. So I was seeing myself sitting in a kitchen at like 45 years old. I'm 36 now. So I started seeing myself standing in a kitchen between 45 and 50 years old. And I'm putting away groceries. And I could, for some reason, this picture of me putting away canned goods in my cabinets just kept popping up in my head. And as I'm putting away groceries, I'm hearing this conversation I'm having with a younger somebody sitting at the kitchen table who used to be me, needing to talk to the older person putting the groceries away. And God immediately literally cleared the picture for me and said, Chenae, someone is going to be the younger representation of you one day, and you're going to be the person putting away groceries. And you have to remember that you used to be the person sitting at this table needing help.
Oh my gosh.
And so all of that was my start of really like getting to the other side.
Yes.
Then after that, I said, if I've built something that means so much to me, if Recruiter Cousin is attached to my name, and I've built something that means so much to me, I am not allowing anyone to minimize what God has blessed me with. If that meant not being attached to what people see as prominent,
yes, and
I had to believe that walking on my own with God himself made me prominent by myself. And I had to know that having God was enough. It didn't matter the popularity. Recruiter Cousin is great. Don't get me wrong. I absolutely love the brand that God and I built together. My husband and I built together. Love it. I also had to know that it could not be at the sacrifice of being attached to something that didn't believe in what God did.
There we go. That part right there. because we do tend to attach ourselves to these things that were that society or our families or different people that come across as a label as, oh, so now you are somebody because you are at this place doing this, or you have this on your, I say business card, we don't use them anymore, because you have this, or you're doing this, or it's to you this prominent or well-known or popular company
Mm-hmm.
you're associated with. So therefore, then, oh my gosh, Chenae, then you must be doing something, girl.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not there, then they're like, oh, okay,
Then
well,
you don't mean as much. And
you don't, and there you go.
to be quite honest, I wasn't interested in only being important because of what I was attached to.
Mm,
Because I wasn't interested in tying my identity to what I was doing. Just like now, I don't tie Chenae into recruiter cousin. I'm Chenae first.
yes,
So when I meet
yes.
people, people go, "Oh, hi, recruiter cousin." I go, "Hi, my name is Chenae." I don't say, "Hi, my name is recruiter cousin."
Right,
Right?
right, right, right,
That's
right.
the name I was given at birth. And so while I love the fact that people people recognize me by my brand,
Sure.
which means that it's impactful. I also make myself know and remember, "Hi, my name is
Yes,
Chenae." Because
yes,
if I'm
yes.
not attached to anything else, I carry my name everywhere I go.
Yes, 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 yes. And what you're sharing, Shanae, is so critical because we tend to lose ourselves. We can easily lose ourselves. And then we get into this spiral, especially if we're in a toxic environment, we're being beat up every day and our worth and our values being stripped away. And therefore, because we've lost ourselves in that, somebody's telling us now we're no longer relevant. We're no longer, the next thing you know, you're waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning making that phone call.
Mhm. And if I can save someone from doing that,
There we
then
are.
then if I have to, so this all goes back to my original promise. And if any of you follow me, you always hear me say my promise before I became a recruiter I would never forget what it felt like. I would never forget my first promise, which was motivational speaking and spoken word artistry. But I will also never forget what it felt like to be a candidate.
Can't. Yeah.
If
I was
I
going
if
to say
I,
that all the
I
time.
made that promise to God first,
Yeah.
that was to God first. I'm more
Hmm.
scared to break my promise to God than being unemployed.
Yeah. There you go.
To
Yes.
be honest, because
Right.
I've had to remember my track record with God and God's track record with me.
Yes.
He
Yes.
took
Yes.
care of me
Yes.
every single time.
Yes. And that's why you're so phenomenal at what you do as a recruiter, because you have not forgotten what it felt like to be a candidate. A lot of times, those of us get to a certain point and we forget from whence we came.
Yep.
We forget from whence we came.
Hmm.
And then sometimes when life happens, when life lights and you drop down that ladder,
Hmm.
that you or whatever pedestal, whatever it is you and you fall, and then your world comes crashing down. When you haven't gotten the opportunity to establish your identity the way you just shared, Shanae, that you established yours or reestablished or reminded yourself of who you are, allowing God to speak to you and remind you of who you are. When we don't have that, I'm totally lost. Totally
Hmm.
lost. We put all our eggs in the basket of that individual that wields the wand or whatever they wield in the corporate America space, which is so dangerous to do.
Hmm.
Absolutely dangerous to do.
Hmm.
Before we wrap this session tonight, look, I want to tell everybody if you don't follow this young woman on LinkedIn, then I don't know where you've been. Okay, for real. But now you know her, so you want to
Instagram,
follow her.
LinkedIn, all of the platforms at
All of
this
that.
point.
There you go. All of that. You want to find Chenae Eckard, recruiter cousin, and you want to follow her. And I mean, like now while we're talking, you should be doing that because impactful, invaluable, extreme deep depth of knowledge. As you see right now in this episode that I've been honored to have her this month, very experienced, 36 years old. I mean, we always say age is just a number. It truly is because you, Chenae, have a depth of wisdom through your ancestry. I am sure they continue to speak and live through you, and the wisdom that you've allowed God to impart on you.
Mhm.
I am so honored that you spent the time with me this month of August to share your story, something that we don't talk about often, that I wanted to pull the curtain back and to show everybody you are not alone. I think you and I shared this before we came on. We often think we are the only ones.
You're not alone.
And you just shared in your story that all of your family had, some of your family members had gone through the same thing in different forms or fashion. So we are not alone. And Chenae just shared that with you. I could share mine as well. Been there, done that. But I'm so glad you spent time with us. Before we close, Chenae, would there be any, because you've got the gift of words. I wish I could be that. I swear, I wish I could be.
I'm gonna end with a poem this time. I'm gonna give y'all a poem.
Oh, yes.
I'm gonna give y'all some spoken word. So this is called Mary. This is Mary actually has gotten me through a lot of tough times. What's interesting in how God works with your gifts is you can write it and it still helps you get through years later. I wrote this poem probably 10 years ago, probably more. And this poem constantly helps me through. And it talks about the different women of the Bible and how those women had to truly endure, right? But it's also understanding that don't ever say you weren't a representation of one of these women at some point. Because if you say that, you're lying. Let's be real with ourselves. Let's be accountable, and let's make sure we understand how to get to the other side. So let me see it. Hopefully I don't mess up because I ain't done this in a while. So it goes, wait a minute. Let me pull it up. Hold on. So I know how to start. Hold on.
No problem.
Instagram family, I had to come on out. Okay. I was born into a world of love, filled with possibilities and situations that was birthed from a new creation. Raised by an uncle, a cousin, a dad who knew the meaning of wisdom and repetition because superstition to him did not equal precision. He raised me to be a woman with power and respect, and yet I always went for gold. He told me he was raising me to be gifted in my soul. So I watched his consistency, his ability to have faith in me, and I became a king's wife. This life that was given to me was not necessarily in my plans, but God told me early on that I didn't have to understand. You are the Esther of this generation with a heart of gold. Even though you may risk your life, stand up and be bold. Yes, I am Esther, the woman who put on her crown and listened, who followed wisdom rather than superstition, a woman who may feel forgotten, but who was willing to wait because I am a believer, who wants love and strength. I am Rachel's sister, Leah, who knows that there is something better, even though I may feel overlooked and out of my youth. I am living proof that God would treat me like Ruth, obedient, sacred, heartfelt, and loved, who would push past the trend and stand out like the woman with the issue of blood. I am loved, the Sarah of this generation. Doubtful at times, but birthing a new creation. I am Hagar, who was abandoned by people when I was willing to try. When they left me in the desert, God saw me and heard my cry. My whys turned into answers of yeses and amens, and men all of a sudden wanted to follow my trend. I am the new creation, battling the no's and you can'ts of this generation, a beautiful creation, made of metal and concrete, stable and able from my head to my feet. I retreat the things of Jezebel and Potiphar's wife. Stepping into my Anna, I am the Mary of this life. I am Mary, not worthy of his presence. Unlike people, he didn't treat me like a peasant, rather pleasant to me. I must agree. I was chosen to birth a king, liberty, placed me in a position, not a superstition, and places so hollow, so easy for me to break down doors, break out of chains because I had some Naomi's to follow. I was not left behind. I did not look back into my past life. I wanted more, better, opposite of Lot's wife. Faith like Mary Magdalene, never mind the chatter, because how I used to live, where I used to go, how I used to be, no longer matters. I am better than I ever was before. I tell you the truth. You want me to be what you say, but I exemplify Ruth. My youth is not in vain, nor is my boundary, because behind enemy lines is where God found me.
Okay.
Come back.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Because I, for real, no words. I mean, no words. That I can't even describe. I'm going to go back and listen and listen and listen to that over and over again. Chenae, oh my God, the gift that you have been given. And there were several of those women that I resonated with. Not just one, but depending on the circumstance that I lived or something that I experienced, I'm going to get emotional, that I experienced, several of those women, as you described them, resonated with me. That was I don't even think powerful is the I don't know the word. I don't have words. Thank you for gracing my podcast with your unbelievable talent that God has blessed you with. That was more than I could have ever imagined to wrap part two of this month with you on Being Brown at Work Live. Shanae, thank you so much.
Of
I
course.
truly
Thank you for having
appreciate
me.
you. Thank you. Okay, look, yeah, I'm telling you, if you now I know you're gonna fall. Look, you're all now for real. You're like, look, wait a minute, how come I didn't know her before? Right, for real. Met this woman a year ago, and time has flown. It hasn't even felt like a year. It felt when I met her, I felt like I've known her forever. So again, thank you so much, everyone. It's been wonderful.